What's up, everybody? I'm Matt.
And I'm Beth.
And today we're going to be reviewing the interior in the 2020 Cadillac XT6. So the XT6 is an all-new model for Cadillac here. It's their new 3-row crossover that's supposed to slot beneath the Escalade, but above the XT5, which is only 2 rows. And so this is a nice option for those who want a Cadillac that seats, 3 rows of people, but you don't want something massive and gas-guzzling like the Escalade. This is a nice alternative, with this one having a V6 engine instead of the V8 and the Escalade and stuff like that. But as far as the interior here, so this is the Sport trim, so it's a little bit of a sportier appearance than what you would get with the premium luxury trim, which would have a more luxurious feel to it. And so, one of the standout things you see here in this interior is this carbon fiber, which is genuine, but then it has this like copper weave to it that gives it this like golden appearance. Very unique, and only Cadillac does this, and I think it actually looks kind of cool.
Yeah, it is definitely really cool looking.
Yeah, and combined with these Bose Performance speakers here, which are metal and stuff, and padding everywhere, it's actually a pretty premium interior. Some other reviewers were saying this didn't feel as premium as some of the competition. I kind of disagree. I think this seems just as nice as a lot of the competition, and I don't really have too many complaints. And honestly, stuff like an Acura MDX I think actually feels less luxurious than this. So I think they've done a good job here overall. But first thing, sitting down in these seats, we have these perforated leather seats here in the Sport trim, and I think these seats are a tiny bit sportier than what you get in the premium luxury trim. They don't have a ton of adjustability. They do have adjustable lumbar, but there isn't any kind of adjustable bolstering or anything. But this is a family crossover, so don't really expect that. But
they do feel really comfy.
They are, yeah. They're pretty soft, and have the right amount of firmness, so they're not super soft. Still supportive and stuff. But they're heated and cooled. But one interesting thing that I noted is this one, and I don't think there's even an option for massage seats, which the Cadillac XT4 that we had massage seats, and that's a cheaper, lower Cadillac SUV. It's weird that this top trim doesn't have that, and so that's kind of an odd exclusion, because it would be really nice to have that here.
Yeah, it would be.
And kind of, because I think like the Volvo XC90, that has massage seats, and there might be one or two others. But anyway, still good seats. The steering wheel is also really good here in the XT6. I really love, again, more of this carbon fiber trim, and you have metal here on it for some of the buttons. Has a good 9-3 grip, nice little 10-2 notches. Even has these magnesium shift paddles behind the wheel, which feel great and just look good as well. And so a really fantastic steering wheel with just a few buttons on it. The gauges in the XT6 are also really good. You have standard analog dials here, but you do have a digital portion there in the middle, which is nice and large, and has a readout for your speed, the speed limit, your fuel economy, whatever you want to have on there. You can also go through various other things like your audio settings, navigation, all that kind of stuff. And it's a really good setup. It's not fully digital like you get with the Volvo and a few others, but I believe there might be a digital option that this one just doesn't have, but it looks good nonetheless. There's also a heads-up display here in the XT6 as an option, and it's pretty good. It does just show you some of your basic stuff. You can flip through. There's a few different options. In addition to showing you just your speed readout, it can also show you your TAC and several other things depending on what you want to see there. But I've noticed it's a little distorted with the way it's projected on there, and it doesn't seem super clear with the way that it's done. But still is nice to have if you are into heads-up displays. Me personally, it's not a feature I love, and I can certainly do without it. But if you like it, it's nice that they do offer that. Coming over to the center of the dashboard here, though, the first thing you might actually notice above the dashboard is this digital rearview mirror, which is a super cool feature, and it's very useful, especially if you have kids or cargo, especially in that third row that would block your rear view. With this, you have no blockage whatsoever, and you have a nice clear view there. Although I did notice that whenever we were driving in the rain one day, half of the camera got covered with water, and so it kind of blocked it a little bit. So it's not as perfect as what you see with a normal mirror. In those type of instances, it would probably get kind of a little gunked up, in the winter time and stuff. So that's one thing to note, but otherwise it is nice to have. But anyway, coming down here, you have this 8-inch touchscreen infotainment display. and it's really easy to use. It's the same as any other GM vehicle. They all have the same layout, where you have the menu screen here, and then you swipe over and you'll see this other screen which will include your navigation and your audio and kind of give you an overview of everything, and then just a few other options here for like the camera view, so you can have a 360 cam in here and various other things. And so it's really easy and straightforward. The only thing I don't love about this new GM system is that whenever you're going through radio stations, one, there's no tune knob, you just have tune buttons, but also when you are tuning, instead of just changing the station, it takes you to this whole separate sub-menu with like a larger view of like the channel icon, and you have to scroll through that and then select which one you want, and then it goes back to the audio screen. It's just an unnecessary step. Instead of just changing the station, why it needs to have this whole transition and stuff that just kind of makes it a little more cluttered with the experience. Otherwise, though, it's got Apple CarPlay and Android Auto as standard, which is great to have those included, and works really well, especially combined with this Bose Performance Series stereo. It sounds really good.
Yeah, it definitely sounds really nice. We played a lot of music in this car, and we had a lot of fun. It was very nice.
Yeah, and it's also great. You can have two Bluetooth devices hooked up at the same time. So her phone was synced up for playing the stereo, and then I had mine still hooked up for calls or whatever. And so it's nice that you have that ability there to have both of them synced up. This also does have 4G LTE Wi-Fi enabled in this vehicle as well. So if you have kids that want to run stuff on Wi-Fi instead of on a data plan, you can run that here through the car as well. And if you're someone who doesn't like a touchscreen, there is still this controller by the shifter here, and that you can scroll through, and you can also tilt it to go to different menus and stuff. And this is nice, and it's got this like notched metal feel to it, and feels pretty premium, and a few other little button shortcuts around it there. So it's good they give you the option. If you're someone who hates fingerprints on a screen, you can use a controller if you're coming from the German vehicles that all have controllers and still feel right at home. Coming down to the climate controls here, you have nice large readouts and these nice metal switches here for the fan speed and the climate temperature. And
you do have heated and cooled seats. It is very nice. However, I did think that it was capacitive touch, but it was not. They are buttons, which is nice, but kind of deceiving when you look at it. But it still works, so it's good.
Yeah, and I think it's actually nice having the capacitive, or having it not be capacitive touch, because I feel like with this you actually feel you're pressing something and actually doing something,
right.
So it's a little more responsive. And I think that's Cadillac learned their lesson, because we, in the past few years had like a CTS, which actually had capacitive touch, and that was kind of hit or miss with how responsive it was. With this, you still have a real button behind it, but you still have the clean display of, having something that looks like it's capacitive touch.
One thing I also noticed in this car is, once again, the vanity mirrors, and they don't give you very much vision of yourself. If you're trying to look at yourself in the mirror, you can't see anything. I could see from here on, and so basically if you wanted to look at kids in the back seat, you could easily see them. However, if you're trying to touch up your makeup or just check on your hair or something like that, you can't see anything. So unless I'm over here, I won't be able to see myself if I'm just in a normal seated position.
Yeah, it's just kind of weird. I wonder whenever they design these, because also the Toyota Supra we just had the same issue, and I wonder if they even look in the vanity mirror, because it's like all they had to do is have this little bracket just be an inch further back to line that up to a better angle so you can see yourself straight on. I don't know if they just didn't pay attention or what.
I guess maybe no one uses them anymore, but every once in a while I'll check something on myself and, can't see anything.
As far as storage space here in the XT6, it is pretty good. They have done a really good job with some unique storage spaces. But first, in the doors here, you have a large map pocket, which kind of has a bottle cutout. You can see there's like a little indent here in the door for a bottle.
But you definitely couldn't fit like large sports bottles or anything like that.
Yeah, so it's not the biggest cutout, but they kind of met you halfway, I guess, with a pseudo bottle holder there. Coming over to the center, though, right beneath the climate controls, you do have this little pocket, which is actually lined with this nice, like, premium vinyl, and that's a nice little cubby, although it's not huge, but something extra there.
It's not necessarily big enough to fit a phone, but it could just throw, like, your key fob or some gum or something small like that.
Yeah, so it's a nice little space for that kind of stuff. You also do have your cup holders here, which have a nice little cover for them. And then there's also this massive storage bin underneath the shifter. And it's really great. They give you all that space. The only problem is it's a little tricky to get into because the opening isn't huge, and it goes so far back that unless you're like 7 feet tall and your seat is all the way pushed back, you're not going to be able to reach stuff in the back of this bin. And that's also, you'll see there's a power outlet tucked away under there as well, but that's also impossible to see unless you're on the passenger seat. So this thing, I feel like you're gonna have to be like basically crouching down in your footwell in order to like see half the stuff in there. So I wish that was a little more opened up.
Yeah, don't try to go in there while you're driving.
Yeah, that's for sure. Yeah. So, but it is a nice large space, and I'm thinking, you know, maybe if you have a small purse or something, you could just slide that in there and easily grab it without having to actually see what you're, you know, grabbing in there. So good to have that. You also have the center armrest, which is pretty softly padded, and you open that up, and you'll see a couple little things. First, there's this removable tray here. It's nice and felt lined, which is great. You also see a USB jack and a USB-C jack in there, as well as an SD card slot, but that is mostly just for the navigation. And then this goes pretty far down there and has even a little cutout for the key. And then you have this wireless charging pad in here as well, which you can slide down. And so that is a nice feature to have because it actually stops there, so you can actually see the top of your phone still, even with this closed.
And I think that's really smart how they did that, because you can set your phone in there, and if you're throwing something else in there or pulling it out, it's nice because it won't hit your phone or scratch it or give there any reason for your phone to be damaged in the process of pulling things in and out of that bin.
Yeah, like we just reviewed a Toyota Highlander a few weeks ago, and that just put a wireless charging pad right at the top of this bin. So you had to like remove your phone or figure out some way to get into this thing without, you know, messing up your phone. So Cadillac had the right idea. They did this correctly. Toyota, take notes. This is how you do a wireless charging pad in a center bin. So very well done there. Going back to the second row here in the XT6, it's pretty spacious and about as roomy as the current generation Escalade, but I think the new gen Escalade that's coming out here this year is going to be a lot more spacious than this. But you know, for that second row, you have the captain's chairs there, and I believe you can still option a bench, but captain's chairs are in this one, and they're pretty comfortable. You have a little armrest built into them, and they're also heated back there, but not ventilated. It would be nice to have the ventilation since this is a luxury branded vehicle. Even some non-luxury stuff like the Kia Telluride and Hyundai Palisade actually give you ventilated rear seats there. But anyway, you also see you know, some nice controls there for your climate. You have vents in the roof for that, and then there's also a USB jack and a USB-C jack back there, and there's also a nice little drawer that comes out that has cup holders built into it. They even have metal bottoms to the cup holders, but that drawer, at least in this one, must have been broken with the latch because that kept sliding open and it didn't stay shut. It didn't latch. So I'm not sure if that's a common problem with these or if it's just this one, but definitely make sure that your little cup holder drawer there for the second row closes if you are buying one of these. Other things though, you have pockets there in those doors as well. And as far as this space, you know, obviously with those seats pushed all the way back, you have plenty of room. Even myself being 5'9", sitting behind myself, several inches of legroom to spare, no issues there. And then that seat does slide up. It's not power, it's a manual, but you can slide it up. And then I can actually get it so that my knees are still in the seat back to give myself the most amount of space in the third row there. And then moving into that third row, you have two more seats, and they have their own USB-C jacks and cup holders back there. But me being 5'9", again, with that second row slid as far forward as I can get it to go with me sitting in it, I do have about an inch or so of legroom to spare. So it is roomy. There's enough headroom back there. It's okay for some, you know, if you have all adults that are 5'9" or less, they'll all be able to fit in here, at least, you know, in this 6-passenger configuration. Now, with that second row slid further back, if someone needs more legroom, then that third row starts to get tight. And with that second row slid as far back as it'll go, I have my knees like crunched into the back of that seat. Now, since, you know, you do have the captain's chairs there, you can have one of your knees, you know, in the middle there, so only one of your knees jammed in the back there, but still not a super comfortable experience. And if you don't need that third row, it is power folding, so the third row can just power fold into the floor, and also power fold up as well whenever you do need it, so that's great. But another thing I do have to add though about the third row is that getting into it isn't great. Now I will say that you do have a decent amount of space there to walk through the middle of the captain's chairs, and I was able to do that without too much trouble, even as a, you know, a normal sized adult. But if you are someone that's larger, you're going to have to sling that seat forward, and again, They use a latch and a plastic handle to, you know, slide that seat forward. I do wish that was power folding, because again, there's a lot of 3-row crossovers that are non-luxury segment, you know, stuff like the Honda Pilot, the Kia Telluride, and the Hyundai Palisade that all have a power sliding second row, and even the Acura MDX does offer that as well when you're talking about the premium competitors. So it would be nice if that was power here in the XT6. It's not. So if you are using that third row on a regular basis and they don't have the opportunity to walk through the middle, that is going to be a little bit of a pain. But since the middle is fairly spacious there, I think, you know, it shouldn't be too big of a deal to walk through the middle. But just one little thing I wanted to note there. Trunk space here in the XT6 is also pretty good. It's on par with most other 3-row crossovers in this segment. You know, I think like a Volvo XC90 has about the same amount of space. Might be a little bit more than stuff like an Acura MDX or something. But anyway, you know, those, like, since those seats do automatically fold at the push of a button, you know, you can have them drop into the floor there, and you have way more space if you don't need that third row. But if you do need it, you still do have a bin underneath the floor that you can lift that up, and you'll see a nice little large cubby there underneath there. So that's extra space that's nice to have. And it's of course a power tailgate as well, and it does have the kick to open feature. And I do like how Cadillac and other GM vehicles actually project the logo on the ground, at least at night, so you can actually see where you're supposed to kick to open it up, so it actually works properly. Other vehicles just force you to guess, and half the time you guess wrong and it's tricky to open up. This, it's a little more predictable and reliable because you actually know where you're supposed to kick. So that's nice to have as well. So overall, really, you know, pretty well done trunk space for the segment. But yeah, so overall, the interior here in the XT6 is really nice. We had a great time, you know, cruising around here for the week that we had it, and I think it is, again, pretty luxurious. It's maybe not as high quality feeling as like an XC90 Volvo that, you know, might feel a little bit nicer in a few places, but I think this is pretty comparable, honestly. And like I said, better than an MDX. Also, the Lexus RXL is another one that's, you know, a new 3-row crossover. And with those, you know, I actually think that the touchscreen, even though it's larger in the Lexus, it's harder to use because it's further away. And I think that they did a really good job here with the setup in the Cadillac. I really like this interior a lot.
Yeah, it's definitely nice for sure.
Yeah, but anyway, that's all of our thoughts. Let us know your thoughts on the XT6 interior in the comments below. Thank you guys very much for watching. We'll see you on the next one. Take care.